Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this Dell XPS 13 model 9350. So we're going to be replacing the keyboard on this, and this is a pretty lengthy process, but basically what you'll need is a PH1 and a T5 screwdriver. So first what you want to do is remove the T5 screws from all the way around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then after you remove those 8 screws, there is a PH1 screwdriver here, or screw. Remove that one underneath this cover. Alright. Okay, so once you do that, you might need some strong pry tools, but basically along this edge here on the bottom half, okay? So what you do is you get your pry tools or fingernails in between. This cover is pretty tough to remove, so you will kind of have to use some force. So I pull it on it with my fingernails and then push with my thumbs to kind of push the case away. Once you get that out, the rest of it can come out pretty easily. There are some clips along here, but if you kind of wiggle it around, you'll get it out just like that. Okay? So there you go. If you have a little trouble with it, you can just use the pry tool along the sides, but be careful because you don't want to pry up this stuff here. So usually I just pry up the bottom like that. Alright. Okay, once you do that, you want to take your PH1 screwdriver and then take out the screws for the battery. Okay, so remove those. Try and keep the screws in order because they are different sizes, shapes, and lengths. You don't want to get them all mixed up, because you can cause accidental damage putting the screws in the wrong place. Alright, so you remove the 4 screws. So these 3 here are bigger round screws, and then there's one smaller silver screw here. The customer actually, I think, replaced the battery on this one themselves because it was inflating. But basically, after you do that, after you get all the screws out, you can lift the battery up. You will have to peel this stuff out because these speaker cables are kind of stuck to the battery and in the way. Alright, to disconnect the battery can be a little tough, but basically what you want to do is kind of grab the wire as close as you can to the connector, and what I do is I kind of just wiggle it. Let me zoom in so you can kind of get a better view. Right, but basically what I do is I hold on to the laptop and then I kind of just wiggle the connector and it comes out eventually like that. You don't want to just yank it straight out because you can damage it that way. Alright, so if the battery has the same model number, I mean they did replace it, but this shows JD25G. Okay, so I don't know if that's the same because this isn't a Dell, exact Dell replacement. It's a aftermarket battery, so I don't know what I think the model should be the same, but just in case, that's what it shows. Alright, once you disconnect the battery, what you want to do is open up the laptop. Be careful because there are less screws holding the cover, and just hold the power button down for about 15 seconds or so. That will drain any power that's in the board to prevent any damage to the components. Alright? Sorry, it's getting kind of late. Alright, so anyways, now that we got that, we're going to have to disconnect all these cables because we are going to replace the speakers. So these speaker connectors are kind of stuck to the board, so you want to peel those off. I'm going to go ahead and show the important part first, I guess. I don't think the RAM is replaceable in here at all. I don't see any removable sticks of RAM. So I think the RAM is actually soldered in, but if you wanted to upgrade the SSD, there's just this one screw here. Alright. Once you remove that screw, then you should be able to lift it up slightly and then just pull it back. Okay. This is, let's see, does it say here? This is a PCIe. So this is an M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD. So if you wanted to upgrade your SSD, you can do that. Just make sure you get a PCIe NVMe. It probably supports SATA as well, but if you use that, it'll be quite a bit slower. Alright, so we are going to, again, just go ahead and remove everything so that we can remove or replace the keyboard. So speakers come out. Just take out the 4 screws, so 2 screws on each speaker. Okay. Hopefully the video will be clear enough, even though it's kind of zoomed out a bit. Whenever I zoom in, I kind of forget to zoom back out when I work on stuff, so hopefully I won't. But anyways, remove those two screws, then you can lift the speaker out. All right, same thing with the other one. Technically you don't really have to move the speakers too far, but I'm just going to take them completely out of the computer. All right, same thing with these two screws. Now we got all four speaker screws out. Okay, so to remove the speaker connector, you just grab the wings like this, and I just like to wiggle it like this, switching back and forth. You don't need to use too much force, just keep wiggling it and it'll eventually pop out like that. All right, so now we'll take the speaker assembly out. All right, again, try to keep these screws in order because they are all different sizes, length, and everything. Okay, might be tricky with this because, excuse me, we're removing everything from this computer. All right, so you got these two connectors here. Hopefully you can see. You do flip the latch up. Okay, it's from this side, it looks like. Yep. So flip those latches up. Let's actually move this cable out of the way first. So this is the LCD or LVDS connector. When you remove this, it's very important that you did hold down the power button, because if you didn't, removing this can cause permanent damage to the computer. Sometimes the pins will short over and it will cause the screen not to work anymore. All right, so we'll remove those two screws. This metal plate will come up. All right, you can move it out of the way. I peel it back some all the way to where it's just on the fan. And then to remove this connector, let me zoom in some more because it's going to be hard for you to see. All right, but basically you have this plastic tab. While you're pulling on this, I like to get my fingernail or a plastic pry tool underneath the corner and then just pop it up just like that. Okay, and that's how you get that connector out. Let me zoom back out. Okay, and then this connector, I think we do we have to remove some screws to get this cable out? It's kind of trapped under the fan. Let's see. I don't see the screw, so all right, well, I'm going to try and lift up this little thing and slide the cable underneath. Here we go. Oh, there's one screw down here, so let's see. Oh yeah, that cable is kind of blocking it, so we're going to have to remove the board screws here. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to keep track of all these screws, but do the best you can. Oops, I'm going out of view. Okay, I like to lay the screws out on my desk in the pattern that I remove them, so that way I can more easily tell where I got them from. Anyways, so we remove that screw. Okay, there's one screw up here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. All right, remove both those screws. I think we can kind of lift it, but not really. All right, let's remove this cable here. I think this is for like the microphone or the camera or something. No, actually 2 pins. I think that's for the microphone. But anyways, just like the other cables, if you can get between the two sides, just wiggle it, keep wiggling it, and it should eventually pop out. Okay, just keep wiggling, just keep wiggling. There we go. All right, so that's in the way. All right, this thing is kind of taped on here, so you do have to peel up all this adhesive that's holding these cables in the way. It is gonna tear, it looks like. Let me see if I can, no, I do have to take it out, don't I? Let's see. There's one screw hidden underneath this cable here that if you can move it slightly out of the way, then you can undo that screw. Okay, be careful not to force it too far out of the way. If you want, you can peel up this adhesive first, and then that will make it easier. All right, let's see. I'm going to use this tool to try and peel that up, if I can get it. All right, so we got this tool, and I'm going to use that to get underneath. If you don't have this, you can just use like a little needle or something, and then, but this helps peel out this stuff. Okay. All right, so there we go. Now we can get this screw out completely. Okay, let's see, that screws about there. Okay, so now we should be able to lift this up and get this fan cable all the way out. But yeah, they do like layer these adhesives, so if you want to peel it out, I don't know, you're gonna have to like peel all of this out. So let's peel this up. I don't really like peeling up these adhesives because they don't stick back on, but kind of looks like we have to. All right, because this cable, I need to take it out. All right, so we'll take that cable out completely. And this board, now it separates from here. This piece is held on with some adhesive. You do want to be careful with it because we do need to reuse this cable. So when you pull it up, avoid pulling it to where it creases it. So what I do is I kind of pull it sideways while I'm kind of lifting it up, and it comes out just like that. All right, so we'll set that cable aside as well. And then this connector, it's still taped on here. I'm just gonna leave it taped on there like that, and then I'm gonna flip it out of the way. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Let me actually zoom out so you can see more better. Okay, so I just moved that out of the way. We got the two fan screws out already. Of course, this one piece of the fan is underneath the motherboard, so to get this out, you do kind of have to raise it up, pull it up slightly, because the other screw thing goes through the bottom. All right, so let's remove the fan connector. Just wiggle this, just like that. Okay, set that aside. Let's see, so we got another fan, or another screw for the motherboard up here. Okay, we got that one, set it aside. Then we got, okay, we got this screw down here. Take that one out as well. The screws, they have these little arrows that point so you know where they came from. Keep that in mind, but up here there isn't a little arrow because it's covered with all this black adhesive stuff. So just keep in mind where you took the screws out. If anything, you can rewatch the video so you can find out where the screws came from. Alright, so there's one more screw down here with an arrow pointing at it. I don't like to disconnect the CMOS batteries if I don't have to, because when you do that, it resets the BIOS, so try and keep that connected if you can. Alright, then we're going to disconnect this cable here, which is for the keyboard and all of these other things, the LEDs and yeah, and the keyboard backlight. So let's see if we can get that cable out. It's kind of stuck there because they put the adhesive. You do want to be careful with these because the adhesive, if you just yank on it, you could damage these cables. So I'm going to use this tool to kind of pull it out of the way. You can use like a little needle, it helps, or a toothpick. Alright, but as you can see, it's kind of held down with adhesive. But we do need to take this out because we're going to change the keyboard. So flip up the little latch down here. Alright, and then of course, like the rest, I said you don't want to crease the cable, so try and pull it to keep it flat. Alright, try and keep the cable flat while you're kind of peeling it. And then you can push down on the black plastic layer here, which is the keyboard backlight. Alright, and then just slowly peel it as you kind of pull it horizontally. Alright, there we go. So we got that cable out. There's so many little pieces here, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to keep track of. Okay. Oh, this black tape used to be over this stuff, but I moved it out of the way earlier. So if you're wondering why I didn't have to peel that, it's because I opened this earlier to do that. Okay. So now you want to disconnect the keyboard cable, so flip up this white latch and then flip up the black latch on this side. You can pull the keyboard connector out, and then this side you can pull the backlight cable out. Alright, you do want to move this yellowy tape out of the way. This is Kapton tape, which is, I don't know why they use this, because it's like a heat tape it's good for resisting heat. But anyways, now that we lifted that latch up, the cable should come up. Alright, this tape we can transfer over, though I'm not sure why it's there. I'll save that, put it aside. Right, you want to disconnect the trackpad cable as well. Flip up the latch there, and then you can pull it back. It's best if you can pull on the blue plastic tabs instead of the cable itself, because those get damaged easily. Alright, let's see. Are there any screws I'm missing? We will have to... Actually, we don't have to disconnect all these cables. So there's all these cables for like the touch screens and the cameras and everything. But anyways, we're going to leave all of that in there. Let's see if I can peel up this tape without just tearing it. Okay, they got a bunch of this tape everywhere. Kind of hate when computers just use tape. Alright. So we'll just peel that off. Okay, it came off completely, so we'll move that out of the way. You got the DC jack charge port here. We are going to have to remove that because it's in the way. So there's one screw holding it in place. Okay, take that screw out. I'm going to keep that separate from the rest. But again, to remove the connector here, just go along the edges. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. Alright, so, oops, sorry, it's wiggling a lot. There we go. Alright, just like that. Get your fingernails or some tools and just keep wiggling it and it'll pop out just like that. Zoom back out. Too much. There we go. Alright, and then just grab the cable and you can use that to kind of wiggle it and lift it up. Oh, actually, they trap it underneath the motherboards here. So there's one more screw here for the motherboard, it looks like. I believe that's the last one. Okay, so now hopefully we should be able to lift the board up. So I start from this side. Okay, it's sticky for some reason underneath. It usually isn't, but so what you do is you kind of wiggle it around. I don't know why it's stuck. There's something holding it down that shouldn't be, but be very careful with this. If your board is stuck, you don't want to force it out and then end up cracking your logic board or motherboard. Okay, so let's see here. Is there some screw I'm missing here somewhere? I don't think so. It's just, okay, it's caught on something. So what I did is I grabbed the board and I pulled it down towards the trackpad and it released whatever sticky stuff is holding it in. So we're gonna undo this little CMOS battery as well. Just hold it out of the way. And you want to lift the board at an angle because the headphone jack is kind of getting caught over there. Alright, so I'm just wiggling it. Oh, there's also these little posts here, so be careful when lifting it because you don't want to try and like force it up at an angle and then it will pry on that little post. So you kind of want to, I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing, but so here, there's this little post that sticks up, sorry. That's sticking up right here, and camera's shaking too much. There we go. Alright, so you kind of want to twist it and wiggle it to get it up. Alright, it's a little tricky, and again, I'm leaving these cables connected. The wireless card, if you've seen my other videos, you remove this screw, and then you can take this metal plate off. When you disconnect the wireless antennas, you pull it from the tail, not from the front of these little things that connect, and then to put it back you just push them back down. So if you want to see how to do that, watch my other videos. I'm going to skip that on this video. And here we go. Yes, the RAM is soldered to the board here, but yeah, so we're going to go ahead and go to the keyboard now. I'm going to leave all of that stuff in place because I don't need to take anything else out of this computer. Okay, the DC jack, it looks like I can just leave that there as well, but as you can see it curls around like this around this post. But basically now that you got all of that out, you can take this out. There's a little adhesive holding this down, and it's stuck there, so I'm going to just leave it as is. So for now I'm going to actually put the DC jack screw back in place just to keep it held where it should be. Okay, so this DC jack, the charge port, you can remove it without removing the whole motherboard. You do have to take a few of the screws out along the corners down here, so that way you can lift the board just enough to pull this out of the way. But anyways, for removing the keyboard, if you have a good screwdriver, this one, I'm actually able to use the PH1 to remove all these screws, it looks. But if your screwdriver doesn't grip in well with these screws, you might want to actually switch to a PH0. So let me stop that. Okay, Let me actually get a pH 0 just to see the difference. If it makes that much difference, not really. So I'm actually going to stick with my pH 1 since my pH 1 is doing a good job. So, yeah. So, yeah, if your screwdriver's not doing well, I mean, this is quite a bit more expensive set than the other set I used to have, which I don't think my pH 1 screwdriver would do well with this. So, yeah. Check which screw. You always want to make sure you're not using a screwdriver that's loose, because if your screwdriver is loose, you can damage the screws and then you won't be able to put the screws back. So it's very important. And one way you can kind of test is if you put the screwdriver in and try and twist it to tighten it more, and then you can see it's kind of holding pretty strong. Let me try with the other one just to make sure. So if I switch to the pH 0, oh yeah, that's better. I'll use the pH 0. Okay, safer, less chance that you damage the screw. Alright, so again with the screws, I try it, even though all of these screws are the same size and length, I like to put back the screws where I got them. So I put them in a layout on my desk the same way that I see them, that I'm taking them out. So if you take them out, you'll see like there's a row here, a row here, a row here. I just try and keep that pattern. So it's a good practice, so that way it doesn't matter what screws you're taking out, if they're the same or not, you don't have to worry about it because you'll always be putting them back the same. So sometimes some screws, they'll look the same, but they'll be very slightly different, and that's where following this is very important, that you always put them back in the same spot you took them out. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and remove all these screws. It is a long process. If you want, you can fast forward through the video if you haven't already. But yeah, you can fast forward through. I'm basically just going to take all these screws out. Oh, I almost dropped that one. Alright. But yeah, basically take all these screws out and then get the other keyboard and put all the screws back in. So this customer got a different language keyboard, but the keys layout looked the same. So hopefully it will be the same and it'll fit perfectly. If not, they're going to have to wait and order another keyboard. And it's probably going to suck because I'm going to have to put all these screws back so I don't forget where they go. Okay. There we go. Let's take out this screw. Hopefully this one doesn't have hidden screws underneath the keyboard cables and stuff, because sometimes they tape these things down and then there's screws underneath it. I hope not, but we'll find out once I remove all the other screws and try and lift the keyboard out. Okay. So this design isn't too bad. I mean, I hate that they have to use these screws, because the other ones you can take the keyboard out from the top without taking out so many screws. But at least it's not as bad as some models where they melt plastic or use rivets. So, yeah. Alright, we are getting there. So I think this is the last screw, unless there's some hidden ones here. Alright, let's see. Can we lift this? Oh yeah, okay. I think we got them all. Alright, so once you got that, you can lift the keyboard out. Just be careful, it was getting caught on the DC jack. There are like some hairs and stuff caught under this keyboard that here you can see. They said that it was probably caused by the battery bulging out, but here you can see like some, I don't know, it looks like liquid or something actually got in there, and it actually cat hairs and things like that got in. So I'm gonna have to see if I can clean this up. I'm gonna pause the video for a bit and I'll be back after I try and clean it a tiny bit. Since this is attached, I can't use my thing to blow the air out of it. Otherwise I have to take this all apart, so I'm gonna actually go grab a vacuum and do that. Alright, I'll be back, guys. Alright, I'm back. So I cleaned it up a little bit. We're gonna get this new keyboard. So here you can see it actually has a different language on it. But anyways, we're gonna see if it fits, so hopefully it drops in nicely and we don't have any issues. Alright, so we're just gonna put the keyboard in, line up all the screw holes that are there. It looks like it dropped in nicely, so I think we are good. Be careful with these cables that have like creases in it. You don't want to like put too much force on it. I have a feeling that when the battery expanded, it probably creased that too strongly, and that's probably what caused it to not register several keys. All right, so now we're gonna put back all the keyboard screws. Okay. Again, you don't really need to watch all of this. But yeah, the important thing, make sure everything lines up, and then kind of push down the keyboard, make sure that none of the keys are getting stuck, because if it's not going down all the way and you already put back a whole bunch of screws, it's going to be a pain to have to take the screws back out to find out to remove whatever debris is stuck in there. All right, so I'm going to put back all these screws. Another thing I didn't show, which, well, I guess with this one it's really difficult to do because you have to hold the computer sideways, but it's usually a good idea to plug the keyboard in and test it before you go through all of this, because this is somewhat lengthy process. It's not as bad as some of the others, but again, it is quite a bit to do. If you want, you can plug it all in and then test it without putting all the keyboard screws in. You can put like just a few, but then if it does work, then you have to take the board out and then redo it all, put all the rest of the screws in as well. So either way, it could end up being more work. So yeah. All right, so there we go. Put the keyboard connector back in. Hopefully, oh, I guess you can't see that, but I just reconnected this. Let me do that again since you didn't see it. Lift that up, take this back out. Okay, so we got the keyboard connector. Make sure that there isn't dust or anything in there. I have this thing that I use that I can blow air on and get whatever dust out of the way. But yeah, so let's reconnect. Okay, so just line it up. It is a little tricky the way, like, I have the camera in the way, so if I need to get a better view, normally I look right over the top of the thing that I'm plugging in. Makes it easier to see, but if I do that, usually my head will actually be in the way of the recording. So yeah, so we'll do this. All right, grab the keyboard backlight cable as well, plug that in, put the latch down. All right, I don't know if you can even see that, but if you can't, I'm sorry. Okay. Alright, so this connector looks a little bit different than the other one, but hopefully it should be correct. Alright, I don't know why it's kind of sticking up like that. I did plug it in all the way. Let me take it out just to be sure. Okay, use this little tab to kind of push it in and then push that back down. Yeah, so I guess it's just going to be like that. Alright, hopefully this keyboard works okay. I did notice there's a little like dent in the cable here, so I don't know. I tested the keys that weren't working on the other keyboard and they worked, but I didn't really test all the rest because there's so many keys to check, so hopefully it's good. Alright, let's see. I don't think I'm supposed to put a screw there. Alright, so difficult to tell. Let me see here. Can I tell through the other keyboard where the screw used to be? Not really, kind of. Okay. I think the screw's supposed to be here, but it doesn't want to tighten. Oh, there we go. Alright. Alright, so yep, now we're basically just going through the whole redo all the screws portion of the video. So hopefully this video is going to be useful to you guys. that. Grab all the screws, tighten them up. And another thing I usually do, if you've noticed, I actually twist the screw backwards a little bit first. And then when I feel it or hear it click, then I know that it's actually going in properly, because sometimes the screws will be tilted diagonal a little bit and you don't want to try and put the screw in like that. Alright. 2, 3, 4, okay. I miss one. Oh, I think I grabbed the wrong screw. Let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing. I missed one spot somewhere. Either that or this new keyboard has one less hole. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I must have missed one somewhere. I see one spot here. Maybe it's from that. No, those aren't for those screws. I think this one's missing one somewhere. Okay, let me check the old keyboard again for reference. One. Oh, their height. It's underneath here. Why'd they cover it? I can't find that now. I think there's a screw hole somewhere under here, but they covered it. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. Let me see if I can. I'll use the other one to pinpoint it, and then I'll make a hole in the with a needle or something. So I don't know why on the replacement keyboard they put all these little stickers on it, and the sticker, one of the stickers is actually covering one of the screw holes. So let's open it up. I'm going to grab the needle here. Let me grab the not so sharp needle. Alright, let's line this up. And then it should be about there. There we go. Hopefully I didn't poke through the actual keyboard. But there's, I think, a screw hole there. Okay. I don't know why they covered that, but yep, perfect. Alright, so that's why we're missing, or we had an extra screw. Okay, so now we're gonna put everything else back together. So let's zoom back out. We got the keyboard screws in. Alright, so next we're gonna put the motherboard back in. So I just flipped it over here. I'm gonna flip it back over. And again, since we had it go in or took it out at an angle, you want to put it back at the angle we took it out. So tilt it up slightly like that. I'm going to wobble it all in place, make sure everything's lining up properly. Make sure the cables that were on top before stay on top. There we go. Line that all up. Alright, so let's take some of the screws and put them back. So we're going to put these screws back in. Make sure everything is lined up. There we go. Okay. I don't know why my screwdriver's slightly jumping out of the screws right now. Okay, make sure the screws are in properly. Alright, let's put back the DC jack connector here. Line it up and pull it back in just like that. There we go, that's perfect. Make sure this thing goes back down. I don't remember if it was slightly over or if that's okay. We'll put it there. Alright, we'll grab the fan. Now that you have the fan out, you can clean it. I'm going to use this air blower thing off to the side. Alright, if the heatsink has dirt on it, you can use like a toothbrush or something and just clean it off, and then use some air and blow it off. Alright, so now we'll take the fan. Again, you want to lift this board up slightly and then get the fan on top again. So this, oops, I put it upside down. So this side, it has the larger hole, and that goes over the little screw shaft or whatever. Alright, plug back in the fan, pull the connector back in. Alright, I like to pinch the two sides, the connector and the thing at the same time, so that way you don't put all the stress pushing the thing off the board. Alright, we'll plug back in the touchpad connector, line it up, push that back down. There we go. So we're not going to put the screw yet because we're going to have to lift this up slightly. Let's see, all of this should be okay because we didn't remove anything, but you do want to make sure these cables stay out of the way when you put the cover back on. Okay, so we got all of those back in. Don't forget the keyboard, or the keyboard connector that goes into the motherboard. So plug this side in. Alright, just like that. Latch that back over. Get the other side in as well. Okay, put that down. Okay, so we'll grab the screws here that we took out from the board, put them back in. Now that these screws are out, it's probably a better time to do this so that you can lift the fan up. Well, actually, you can lift the fan up without taking those, so I'm going to put all the rest of the board screws in first. Okay, let's grab all the screws here. Let's see here, am I missing anything? Okay, I think we got, oops, I knocked my thing down on the ground. Oh wow, that actually held up well. Okay, so let's flip this over. Okay, and again, we have to make sure all these cables go back in the right place. Let's see, come on. I think we have to actually put the USB side down first. Or maybe the cable's just, or the tape is holding it, so it's kind of weird. There is a little raised shaft thing there, so you have to make sure that that goes in the right place. Looks like this has to actually go under, right? There we go. Okay, so you have to line up these 2 points. There's the actual posts that stick up. Okay, let's see, what am I missing here? So we got this screw. And we got this little screw that's supposed to hold the fan. I'll put that one later. And we'll put this screw in now. Okay, make sure the screws are nice and tight. go. Reconnect the microphone cable here. Okay, and then tuck these cables back in. Guide the cable all the way around. Alright, you can put this tape back in place just like before. Okay. Alright, and then now that we got all these cables in, you can tighten the screw here. Make sure it's completely tightened. And then also the screw that holds the other side of the fan, you want to put that back as well. Oh, you might have to peel up this tape to move that out of the way. Here we go. Tighten that back down all the way. There we go. Put the tape back over. Okay, line up this connector. Push it back down. You'll hear it click in place. Don't forget this orangey golden cable. Alright, make sure you flip up the latches on both sides. Hold this piece of a label or whatever out of the way. Okay, push that cable back in. Get the other side as well. There's a little dust there. Make sure dust doesn't get pushed into the socket. There we go. Line them up. Push them both down. This side's kind of in the way. Alright. Latch both sides down. Put the adhesive back down. If you want, you can grab this tape that we had before that was over here. I think it was here, right? Yeah. Okay, so we can put that tape back down, which is supposed to keep these cables out of the way. Tape that all back in place. Okay, grab this bracket, put it back in as well. Grab the two screws. Alright. Tighten those screws down. Put the tape back over the top, just like that. Alright, now we can, let's see, put the SSD back in. Just like that. Grab the screw. Tighten it back up. Make sure this adhesive stays out of the way when you put that down. We're going to put back the speakers. So technically, I think you should, well, yeah, you can put this back first. Technically, I think you should put the battery in first. Not plugged in, but just so this cable can go on top. But I'm going to put this first. So these cables were kind of taped up onto the board here, but technically it doesn't really matter. You can stick them wherever. Okay, so we're going to get the battery, slot it back in. Okay, I'm partially plugging it back in. Well, actually, you probably want to plug it back in all the way since we got everything else plugged in. There we go. Alright, so now we got that. Yeah, I think this, did the speaker cable go underneath or on top? Let's see. I guess it does go above, huh? No, I took the battery out, so I think it goes underneath. I don't know, because the customer already took the battery out. So I don't remember if the cable is supposed to go above this piece or not. But you can put it anyway, it doesn't matter, as long as you just don't smash it or put screws through the cable. So the tape is supposed to help hold it out of the way. So here you can see like the screw hole here. You don't want the screw to go through the cable. So as long as you make sure the cable's not getting in the way. Alright, we're going to put back the speaker screws here. Pretty much done now. We just have to put back all the screws. And then after that, just test your keyboard, make sure everything's working well. Oops, I'm putting the screw in the wrong spot. Okay, make sure you put the screws in the right spot. Alright. Last speaker screw, and then we got the battery screws. Make sure you push the battery connector in all the way. Okay. Put back the battery screws. Alright. Then we got the silver screw here for the top one up here. Alright, so now we got all the screws back in, we got the battery back in. We're going to close this up. Put the cover back on, make sure it lines up. And then the bottom, make sure you get it all in place. Right, then what you want, grab the middle screw, put that one in. On this model, the hinges are pretty weak. They don't build it, it's not a good design. So you do want to put the screws in for those before you open and close the screen too much, because you can more easily damage this model than others. So I'm going to tighten in these hinge screws now. And then I'm going to test it. So now that we got the hinge screws and everything in, I'm going to flip it over and let's turn it on, make sure it turns on. You might have to plug it in after taking everything out of the computer, but we'll see. Okay, it is turning on, so you don't have to plug it in. And it looks like it's booting, so looks like it should be good to go. Hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, please like and subscribe because it'll help others find this video. It'll also help me. Thank you for watching. I'm going to check the keyboard right now, but that's pretty much all there is to this. Alright, so computer's on, looks good. We'll put back the rest of the screws. And yep, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.